Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Tracy Williams, and I am the president of the San Jose Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Welcome to tonight's candidate forum for District 2. We had sign-in sheets that they're in the back. Hopefully everybody signed in. We have cards that our members are passing around to give you an opportunity to write any questions that you might have. Before we get started, I just want to give you a little background on the organization Delta Sigma Theta. We are a not-for-profit private organization that was founded in 1913 on a historically black college campus at Howard University. We have 107 years of service in communities. Our mission is to provide assistance and support to local communities. And so what does that look like here for us in Santa Clara? In Santa Clara, we are in our 50th year in providing support to residents in Santa Clara County. We offer scholarships, we do voter education, registration, and candidate forums. We provide youth programs to male and female. We have a 5-point programmatic thrust that centers around economic development, educational development, political awareness and involvement, which this is what this falls under, international awareness involvement, and physical and mental health. So we also have physical and mental health workshops that you might have seen in the community. And so this is the service that we provide in this area for the last 50 years. And so with that, we want to also just share some of our initiatives from a national level. Our organization is very politically active. Our national stance is really centered around things such as gender equity. Those things are important to us for equal pay. Also around health concerns. We want to make sure that women keep their right to choose. And so those are the things that are important to us as an organization. And so we are partnered here tonight with the NAACP. And so I'm going to turn it over to the president, Jeff Moore, so he can just do an introduction and give you the rest of the program for the evening.
Good evening and welcome. Good evening. I'm Reverend Moore, president of San Jose Silicon Valley NAACP. We're the oldest civil rights organization in the country. We call ourselves the oldest and the boldest. The oldest, and everyone wants the mic up. If you've been to Sid Brown, you know I don't like talking with a mic. I just like to talk. My voice will go if it let me talk. So I'm going to go straight to the point here. One, we have initiatives on the back, if you can sign it, regarding moving the mayor's election to the presidential cycle. So if you're interested in doing that, that initiative is back there in the back. Please sign that initiative so we can try to get it on the ballot for November. Also, our Schools and Communities First initiative. We have someone up here. If you want to sign that initiative to get it on the ballot, we have that here. Okay? Now I want to get straight to the forum. And Rick will read off with the rules, but I want to introduce our MC, who is also a member of the California State Hawaii Executive Committee, second vice president of the NAACP. I may open this up. Rick Callender was appointed Chief of External Affairs for the Santa Clara Valley Water District on May 8, 2017. Rick has worked for the Water District since 1996, served most recently as Deputy Administrative Officer for the Office of Government Relations and Communications. As the CEA, Rick leads the district efforts in strategic external communications to the media, community, and the public. The CEA also leads all government relations efforts on local, regional, state, and federal levels, as it is responsible for keeping the CEO and district staff informed of public policies that directly affect the water district. Rick also serves as the second vice president of the California State Hawaii Conference of the NAACP. The California Hawaii NAACP boasts of 74 branches and units, which are mobilized across the state to ensure racial justice and equality, and is a member of the National NAACP Powerful Resolutions Committee since 2001. Rick was the president of the San Jose Silicon Valley NAACP since August to 2008, when he resigned to attend law school. He's now a practicing lawyer. And also, I want to let everybody know, for the members of the executive committee of the San Jose Silicon Valley NAACP, would you please stand? All executive members. And then all the members of Delta Sigma Theta, please stand. Thank you. no further ado, I'll turn this meeting over to Rick, and he'll give us our rules and guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Moore. You know, it's Reverend Moore followed me right after I left the NAACP. He's done a wonderful job of representing us in this community. So let's give Reverend Moore a round of applause.
Yeah.
And I also want to thank the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta for pulling us together. It's so important that we understand who's going to be representing us. As Tip O'Neill said, all politics is local, but who's representing your community is really local. So this is a very important race. First, I bring you greetings from the California-Hawaii NAACP. It's always a pleasure to basically be able to do something throughout the state for the California-Hawaii NAACP, but it's even more special when I'm able to do something locally. One of the things that wasn't mentioned is I actually grew up in this neighborhood. My family moved here in 1976. So you're actually sitting in the library where I spent much of my youth studying, being able to do some of these kind of things. I went to Blossom Valley Elementary School, for those of you that might know it. I went to Burnell, which was right around the corner, and graduated from Santa Teresa. So who's going to be representing this area has a special, unique bond to the community that I grew up in. And so before I announce, those of you that might, before I get into other announcements, those of you that might have questions, if you raise your hand, we're going to have two lovely ladies that will come up to you and take that question from you. So I will look to them to do that after you raise your hand. Looking at some of the rules here, actually, let me get into the introduction. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Getting to the introduction of the candidates, I'll start here at the left. Sergio Jimenez, Councilmember Sergio Jimenez was first elected to the San Jose City Council in November of 2016. Sergio was born in Mexico and came to the States when he was 3 years old. He's a 40-year-old resident of San Jose. His family, like many immigrants before him, came to this country in search of a better life. He earned his citizenship in 2008. He's been active in District 2 neighborhoods for many years, founding the Oak Grove Neighborhood Association and leading many efforts within the district. He served on the City of San Jose's Park and Recreation Commission for over 6 years, 2 as chair, to expand parkland in and around San Jose, and he currently serves on several local and regional boards and committees. Sitting to the right of him, you have Jonathan Fleming. Jonathan was born in Los Angeles, and his family moved to the Bay Area in 1992. He graduated from Santa Clara University with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and has lived in Santa Clara County since 2001 and became a resident of San Jose in 2007. Jonathan started a district leadership group in the most ethnically diverse area of San Jose because he believes that every one of us should be treated equally, be listened to, and have equal representation regardless of our differences. Jonathan was appointed to the Neighborhoods Commission, which is chartered by the San Jose mayors and city council to make recommendations on city budget, public safety, transportation, and neighborhood services. He made focusing on finding ways to solve the homeless epidemic the number 1 issue of the commission in 2017 to 18. The next year, he was elected vice president of the Neighborhoods Commission because of his leadership abilities and track record in getting results. Now for the rules for the candidates, here's what we're going to do. I have Gina that's going to be sitting in the front. She will be our timekeeper. So we're going to start with 2 minutes opening for each person. Gina will have cards, the green will be go, the yellow will tell you that you have 10 seconds, and the red will tell you to stop. For the opening, you'll get 2 minutes. We'll have 1 minute for questions when they come in. And I will give them, if the candidates indicate they want a rebuttal, after the other person, you'll have 30 seconds for a rebuttal 1 time after each question is asked. And Gina will also give you the 10 seconds or the red for stop when your time has expired. I covered the time notification. What we will ask the audience is to refrain from applauding or demonstrating support or non-support for any of the candidates in any way. The candidates are not supposed to have notes or other props. Each candidate will be provided with a legal pad and pens for notes during the debate. The timekeeper we covered, the candidates will not interrupt each other. We're going to make sure we have decorum in the house. We covered the question cards, and so at that I'm going to look to the candidates to see if you have any questions. I'm going to look to which candidate would like to start first. We're going to flip-flop between the 2 of you as we go forward. Do we have a volunteer? Sergio, you got it. And I think you have a microphone right there. Hopefully it's on and working.
Good evening. Good evening. First and foremost, let me just say Happy Black History Month. African Americans in this country really have been a very foundational piece of this country over many, many years, and I very much appreciate the contributions all your families and ancestors have made to this country. So just wanted to get that out of the way. I am Sergio Jimenez. I am the council member here in the city of San Jose representing District 2. I am a longtime resident of the city of San Jose. I've lived in the city of San Jose for 40 years. I've lived in District 2 close to 20 years. One of the things I wanted to get across right at the very beginning is really what is it that drives me? I grew up in East San Jose, raised by a single mother in a small 2-bedroom apartment. And during the course of her lifetime working at a fast food restaurant, I would see her go off in the morning every single day, striving to provide us with a better life. In those mornings when I opened up my eyes on the living room floor, because that was my bedroom, I would see her go off into the darkness of the morning, and really, after many, many years, she instilled in me some key values that I carry with me to the present day. One of those is hard work, and the other one is being selfless, thinking about others. And I can tell you that those values are very present in everything I do and everything my team does at City Hall. Every single day I wake up and my team wakes up thinking about how to improve this city, how to improve this community. Now I know that there are many different folks in this room with different political leanings, different opinions, different life perspectives. But I think something that's undisputable, if you've been an objective observer of what we've been doing over the course of 3 years, is that we have done a very excellent job representing District 2, working hard every single day. I wanted to list off. Oh, that was 2 minutes. Okay.
2 minutes by clip.
2 minutes goes quick. Hi, District 2. My name is Jimenez-Fleming, and I am asking for your vote for our seat on the San Jose City Council. My family, we first moved here in the 1800s. I actually moved into the city about 13 years ago after graduating from Santa Clara University with a degree in mechanical engineering. I was struck by a drunk driver about 11 years ago, and I was told I'd never walk again. I never quit. And if I'm elected to the city council, I will never quit fighting for you. Trust in our local government is near an all-time low. And that's exactly why my campaign has steered clear from the strings-attached money. 93% of our campaign donations come from individuals, community members, just like yourself. Because when I'm on the dais, when I'm up there making a decision, it's for you and you alone, with no strings attached. Since the last election, things have gotten worse here, not better. Crime is up 20%. Homelessness is up 52%. Our cost of living, it's higher than it's ever been. And our quality of life is poor. We want to change. Change means improved safety, with more police officers on the streets. Change means a real plan for solving homelessness compassionately. And that's why I developed the Fleming Homeless Plan. Change means policies and programs that work for all of us without raising our taxes. Change means representation that ensures all of our voices are heard equally. Change. Vote for Jonathan Fleming. Thank you.
All right, well, I have some questions that were provided to me by, I believe, both Delta Sigma Theta and the NAACP, and we're going to start with some of those questions. Mr. Fleming, we're going to start with you. One of the things that you said is an all-time low belief or trust in government. So I want to know, as well as the audience wants to know, who are you going to be supporting for president and why?
So I haven't made my decision yet on who I'm supporting for president. That's a big one, and that's an honest truth. I've been focusing on our city council race, and to be quite honest, national politics are what's dividing our community. It's dividing San Jose, and I'm trying to stay out of that. If you look at my Facebook, my Twitter feed, my social media, how many times have I mentioned national politics? 0, because it's dividing us. It's divisive, and I don't want that. I want our community to come together on local issues, because local issues, those are the ones that matter. Those are the ones that are important to us. Potholes don't discriminate. They don't care if you're red or blue or purple or anything else. Potholes need to get fixed. We need more police out here. We need to feel safe in our homes. That's not a national presidential issue. That's the job of the city council, and the city council is not doing its job. And that's why I'm asking you to vote for me, so we can fix that. Thank you.
Same thing, Councilman Jimenez, 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a registered Democrat, in case you had any questions about what party I belong to. I am certainly supporting a candidate in the Democratic field. Unfortunately, it's not as diverse as I would like, but I think it's due time to elect a woman to lead this country. And so I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this plays out and seeing how some of the women in the race are gonna fare against some of the men. So I have yet to make my decision, but it's certainly going to be one of the Democratic challengers to this president, who I think has been horrible. So thank you.
All right, Councilman Jimenez, start with you. We're going to stay on the national track for just a little bit because I want to make sure we have an understanding. People understand, not only how do you see the local politics, which we're going to get into, but how do you see the national politics. So the next question is, did you support or do you support impeachment or removal from office and why? And obviously the impeachment vote has ended, so please talk to it as did you support the impeachment from office and why?
I do support the impeachment from office. I think if anyone's been watching with open eyes and an open mind, I think it's very clear that this president has broken the law on many accounts, and that's separating it from the offensiveness, the way he degrades women, the way he degrades minorities, and so certainly I think the case that the Democrats made, I think I'm proud to be endorsed by one of the House managers that was actually arguing the case against the president, and so I very much am supportive of impeachment, and I think it's a disgrace that more Republicans weren't willing to stand up and take a stand for the American people.
Fleming, 1 minute.
So again, this is another issue. It's national, it's divisive. The vote was almost 50-50, right? Which means 50% of the community was in favor, 50% of the community was not. What are we trying to do here? Are we trying to unite? Are we trying to unite the people of District 2 among community issues and local issues? Or do we want to continue to talk about national politics here? We need to focus on the local issues. First and foremost, that's what we need to do, because I think change will start from the bottom and work its way up. And that's what we need to focus on, all of us here in this room.
I'm going to have to go back to you because that was a non-answer. So can you please give the audience an answer? Did you support or do you support impeachment from office and why?
So my answer is the same as it was with the previous answer, and that's that I don't speak about national politics, especially on the campaign trail. I haven't done it yet, and I'm not going to do it now, and I'm definitely not going to do it when I'm in office.
Well, Mr. Fleming, we're still going to stay on some of the national issues that have local impacts, because all politics is local, and we're going to go directly to another national issue that affects us locally. Do you support the ICE raids in our community or cooperation by local agencies with ICE?
So when it comes to ICE raids, I believe that immigrants, our immigrant community, we need to be supportive of them. We need to make sure that everybody feels welcome in our community. There are certain members in our community who are immigrants who have broken the law, who are not here documented, who have broken the law, and unfortunately that was their decision to make. They made their own choice, and they suffer their own consequences. If they get in trouble, they get arrested, and then consequently they get deported for their actions of breaking the law, especially with serious or violent crimes, then yes, I do agree.
Councilman Jimenez, 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, as you can imagine, as an immigrant that became a citizen in 2008, I'm very sensitive to this. I think we're going to be talking about public safety at some point, so I think we all recognize, including my competitor, that this police force is stretched thin, and I'm not interested in having them doing the work of the federal agents that should be actually doing the footwork to find some of these folks. I think the challenge is, and it's a delicate balance, right? Because there certainly are people in the community doing horrific things, right? And we need to be thoughtful about that. But we also need to be thoughtful about the fact that we don't want to demonize whole populations based on their immigration status and the fear that that sends reverberating through these communities. Some of these communities are the ones that are dealing with the most crime in the city. And so I don't want our police force enforcing those laws, and I certainly don't support the ICE raids because I think it's going to prevent people that are sometimes most in need of some of the assistance, public safety assistance, from actually reporting it out of fear that they're going to be reported to ICE and hence deported. And I can tell you as an individual that came here by my mom brought me. I broke the law, I guess, but I was here not through my own volition.
I'm going to have to ask you to stop. All right, we're going to hold everybody to the rules that we established. We're going to stay on the theme of safety, Councilmember Jimenez. If you want to finish your thought with your 1 minute, you can do so. Community safety. Data has not showed a direct correlation between state criminal justice reforms and increased crime. We know that crime and the reasons for it are complex and likely born out of inequalities in our society and our city. How do you address safety, or how will you address safety?
Listen, I spent close to 8 years as a defense investigator with the Public Defender's Office, and I've been in prison and seen how, quite frankly, at times, how unjust this justice system is. And so certainly there are people in our community that are committing crimes, and they should be held accountable. I think one of the natural ways, and I think we would probably agree on this, is to increase safety is certainly adding more police officers. I've been working diligently to open up the substation. We've already allocated close to $2 million to the future opening of that, and I'm hoping within the next few years we're going to finally open that substation, have it be used for what it's intended to be used for. I expect once we open that substation, we're going to reduce response times because the officers are going to be able to actually drop off some of the folks they detain there at the cells and come right back to their shifts instead of driving all the way downtown. And so public safety is very important to me. I can also say that I'm very proud to be endorsed by the Police Officers Association. The hundreds of officers in this city have voted and they've endorsed me.
All right, Mr. Fleming, 1 minute.
So, no offense, Rick, but I do disagree with the question, how it was presented. State policies have contributed specifically to local crime. Propositions 47 and 57, AB 109, for example. I just read an article today about the mayor of Los Angeles who cited Prop 47 for the increase in property crimes, street crimes, drug crimes. They said it's drug use is non-punishable. So there's no option. It's either you get away with it scot-free or you go back to what we had before. So we need some change there, some middle ground. On top of that, our own Chief Garcia has come out against Proposition 57. Proposition 57, he said, we're not serious about gun violence unless we change Proposition 57. So maybe we need to reevaluate those laws at a state level. When it comes to local, what are we going to do to fix crime here? Council member was correct. We do agree on staffing, having increased staff for San Jose Police Department. The Southern Station, though, is not going to open unless we have that increased staffing. And I have a plan to get us to 1,450 officers in the near term.
Mr. Fleming, let's start with you, 1 minute. What is your vision for Coyote Valley and our open spaces?
Well, my vision for Coyote Valley, it's pretty similar to my vision for Coyote Creek, Guadalupe River, a lot of our watershed, a lot of our environmental areas. We need to clean it up. We need to make it beautiful. We need to make it so that all of us can enjoy it. I think it's an open space that's preserved into perpetuity, at least for the next 50 years. And that's something that's extremely good and beneficial to all of our communities. So now that Coyote Valley's that way, let's focus on our rivers. Let's focus on our creeks. Let's focus on our parks. Let's make them safe for our children. I got into politics because I came across a child who cut his leg on a syringe going down a slide at a tot lot. City Council wasn't doing their job. That's unacceptable. So we need to put more money into those resources so that all of us can enjoy our open spaces and outdoor environments. Thank you.
There's a quote that says, societies grow great when old men plant trees under which they will never sit. And so I'm so proud of the fact that the discussion about preserving northern Coyote Valley was going on for upwards of 30 years. And recently, I'm happy to tell you that with our environmental partners, we're happy to preserve close to 1,000 acres out there into perpetuity. And I can tell you, not everyone on the council was supportive of that language, into perpetuity. and so it was a big lift. I'm very proud to have been part of that. But now the work begins because we're going to begin to engage with the residents, to begin having discussions about what you want to see out there, how you want that land to be preserved. But I'm very proud of the fact that it's going to be preserved for your children, for my children. One of the things I recognize with our open spaces, having been a parks commissioner and having children, is the fact that once we build over this green space, it's lost forever. And so I'm very happy that we were able to lead the efforts with the mayor and a host of other folks to preserve it into perpetuity.
We're going to move on to a school and communities question. Starting with you, Councilmember Jimenez, 1 minute. Are you in support of the Schools and Communities First initiative, which will bring $11 billion in funding for public schools, community colleges, and affordable housing? And have you endorsed this measure?
So I have endorsed the measure, and I am supportive of it. I know that I've had discussions with some seniors in our community, and they are concerned that it's going to impact them. But as I've come to know the measure, this is not going to change anything that you're benefiting from currently. It's more to hold these corporations accountable. The IBMs of the world that are sitting on their property for years on end, paying a small fraction of property tax. which I think is inherently unfair to you as a taxpaying citizen. And so that's why I'm supportive of it. I think it's going to bring in a good amount of revenue to the schools, and I know we were given a question about schools, and I think this is one of the ways to do it because we're losing a lot of money. And some money is going to come into the city as well. So I very much am in support of it and have endorsed it.
So I'm not in favor of it. I'm not in favor of it because it's an extra tax. It's an extra tax on all of us. And not just the corporations. The corporations, if their tax increases, who pays for it? If Safeway has to pay more money in property taxes, for example, what happens to our bread? The cost of milk, the cost of water. It goes up, and who pays for it? The residents do. Not the corporation, we do. We're already taxed out. Our neighbors, our friends, our family members, they're already leaving this area because it's too expensive. We're not putting enough money into our core services. As a result, no, I'm not in favor of it. We need to get smart. We need to get smart with our money. We need to get smart with how it's spent. That's what we need to do. And if you look at Proposition 13, which pays for our schools, look at it from 1978 until now, it's increased by about 7.4% revenues from that since 1978. Cost of living's gone up by 1% less. So we have more money now than we did back then, and we're using less of it. Let's fix that.
Okay, it's a new one. What plans do you have, starting with you, Mr. Fleming, what plans do you have to work with the homeless in our district?
Well, that's a very good question. So I've created the Fleming Homeless Plan with the academic community over at San Jose State University. It focuses on compassion and helping people rehabilitate. It focuses on sobriety. It focuses on mental health and mental illness. It's a university-like campus. We can house about 800 people there. We can get them food, water, shelter, beds, everything that they need, including rec centers, recreation activities, outdoor spaces, you name it. Everything a person would need to rehabilitate. We help people in 3 different categories. Category 1, someone who's likely to respond quickly. Category 2, someone who's been homeless about 6 to 18 months. And Category 3, those who aren't likely to respond to treatment. We separate them into those categories, kind of like classes, and then we get them the appropriate services combined. It's a much cheaper way of doing this. It's more cost effective. It saves us about $440 million, which actually gives us enough money, A, to house everyone, and B, to get them the treatment and services that they need to become contributing members of society. Thank you.
Let me just first say that this is a complicated issue and there's no silver bullet, no plan, no creation of a colony of sorts out in the boondocks of the city. What I can tell you is it's going to take a multi-faceted approach. One of the things that I'm proud to say is that the first time we've had a safe parking program in the city, in District 2, was because I actually brought that. The initial discussion of having a safe parking program was only for Seven Trees Community Center, and I was the council member that opened up the discussion that got us 2 additional locations, one here at Southside and one at Roosevelt Community Center, where we actually, and unfortunately, have families living in cars. It's a terrible state. The other thing I would say is this, is that the county is on the, and we're working intimately with the county to create a new plan to end homelessness, a new 5-year plan. The first 5-year plan that took effect before I was elected didn't take into account interim solutions. So it all focused on housing, housing, housing. My critique of it has been, what do we do in between that? What do we do from homelessness to housing? And so one of the things that we've been working on including is pillar number 3, which is going to include interim housing solutions and other types of ways of justice.
All right, thank you. I'm starting with you, Councilmember Jimenez, 1 minute. What might you do to make crime penalties harsher at the county and state levels?
What might I do to... Listen, one of the, so as an investigator for the Public Defender's Office and having seen the inside of the justice system, as I mentioned earlier, certainly there are many people that need to be incarcerated that do horrible things. I would say that out loud. The challenge is that this system, I think the statistics is 6 out of 10 people in the justice system look like me and many of the other folks in this room. We as a country incarcerate more of our population than any other modern country in the world. That is not sustainable. Imagine all the talent, imagine all the wealth, the resources left on the table because we take a harsh stance. My view generally, when politicians talk about being hard on crime, I think about Reagan, and I think about the impacts that had on the community, whether it's a drug epidemic or a host of other things. And so I think we need to be more thoughtful as to how we deal with crime and not think that we're just going to use prison as a blunt force instrument which in my opinion has become a business, unfortunately.
So the problem is that we have crime running all around the place. Look at next door, look at Twitter, look at social media, look at all our neighbors being broken into. The two Baskin-Robbins here, Santa Teresa and Uncottle, were broken into. Don't touch my ice cream, right? So that's coming from a big guy, so I can say it. No? Okay. What I'm trying to say is that we do need changes. We need changes to Prop 4757, and one way we can do that is the California SAFE Act. It changes the limit of $950 for a felony down to $250 if it is repeated 3 times. It cracks down on those who take advantage of the system and get away with it. So that's one thing that we can do. Number 2, we can focus on education. We need to make sure that our state and county focus on improving education, after-school activities, sport events, things like that, to make sure that our youth don't get into that lifestyle in the first place. The city council can have after-school programs, help sponsor field trips, things like that, so that kids feel part of the community and not like they have to resort to crime to fit in. Thank you.
Mr. Fleming, starting with you. In 2018, Santa Teresa High School had a teacher who presented a noose to an African-American student. How do you work with school districts to ensure safety of students and prevent hate incidents such as this?
You fire that teacher first and foremost. That's the number one thing you do. And you educate them, obviously, on ethics. You educate them that we're all people. We're all together equal. We're all in this together. There's no tolerance at all for racial discrimination. There's no tolerance for hate at all, especially in our schools. That's what you got to do. The city council, from a city council perspective, I'm not sure what we can do. That sounds like a school board decision to me. But if it's an after-school activity, if it's a grant money that we can grant to a school district to help them out in that area, I would be in favor of that. There is no place for hate in our schools.
Thank you so much. And I know some of those challenges have occurred at Santa Teresa High School. My daughter attends that school and has reported feeling uncomfortable at times. And I think part of what needs to happen, and what I've done my best to do, is to build a relationship with the principal. I know Principal Louie is no longer there. I have yet to start my relationship with the new principal, but I can tell you that we've been very active on the school grounds. If you look at our Facebook feed, Twitter feed, I'm often talking to students. Just the other day, actually yesterday, I was at Oak Grove High School talking to students about the importance of getting involved, registering students to vote, and answering questions and introducing them to City Hall. Time and again, you look at some of our posts on Facebook, we're always giving tours. Some of my colleagues on the 18th floor look at me a little strange because I'm the one that gives the tours. I'm taking the kids around, letting them sit in my seat, pushing the button, getting them engaged. And I think that's what we need to do. The other thing that I think is important, and I appreciate my competitor mentioning it, is giving grants to the schools, and we've done just that. We've given grants to many of the elementary schools and the high schools to provide some of the programming for some of these kids.
All right, we're going to stay on the school theme, starting with you, Councilmember Jimenez, 1 minute still. What are your ideas, plans, and/or actions that you will take moving forward as our council member to prevent our community from losing any more teachers or schools?
So one of the things to understand is obviously the city council handles issues related to roads, police, fire, and things of that nature. The schools have their own school boards that make those decisions independent of anything the city council does. But I can tell you that I have an outstanding relationship with the superintendent of the Oak Grove School District. We meet periodically and deal with a host of different issues. Just so you know, some of the schools that were closed, 2 schools were closed, right? My son went to one of those schools. So sometimes folks, I think that we're not directly impacted by some of these decisions. So it's very important to me that we prevent these schools from closing. I think one of the ways we support that is, I believe they have a measure, I think it's Measure S, that I'm supportive of. It's a tax measure for the local schools, and I'm very much supportive of that. I think it provides generational equity in which we're paying forward some of the benefits that are going to move forward with some of the kids that are currently attending. So very supportive of that, and I try to do everything I can to be an open sort of line of communication with the superintendent.
Okay, we're going to stay on measures.
So it's
There you go. We're going to stay on measures.
my turn.
Go ahead. The flashing lights.
The flashing light, yeah, it gets all of us here. So the answer to that question is you have to ask yourself, why are the schools closing in the first place? It's because enrollment has dropped. It's because we don't have the children going into those schools, so we're losing those schools, right? Why is enrollment dropped? It's because our quality of life is poor. It's because our cost of living here is excessively high. Too many taxes, too many fees. Families are moving out of the area. You can't raise a child here because it's too expensive and it's not safe to do so. So what can you do on the city council to fix that? No more taxes. You fix these policies. You get new representation. You get more police officers out there. You fix this. You fix Prop 47, 57. You fix the broken system. That's how you do it. Families will come back. Children will grow up here. That's what we want. We want a better community for us all, and that's how you do it at the local level.
All right, we are going to go to the measures that I said. Do you support measure, starting with Mr. Fleming, do you support Measure E? And what are the strengths and limitations of the measure in your view?
No. And since I don't support it, I don't believe there are strengths to it. It's another tax. You don't make housing affordable by putting more taxes on property, right? It's kind of counterintuitive and backwards. You just don't do it. And with the cost of housing going up, pretty soon that $2 million threshold is going to be the average household value here. And what's going to happen, all of us are going to pay increased taxes on that at some point if you own a home or if you're transferring a home, if you're selling a home. It doesn't make any sense. So you don't make housing more affordable by taxing and increasing fees. It just doesn't work.
So I'm a benefit of affordable housing. I wouldn't be up here if my mom didn't have stability growing up. If we didn't have stability growing up with 4 walls and a roof. And so I am very sensitive to the fact that we need more revenue, and the mayor and everyone on the council recognizes we need more revenue to build more housing. However, I am going to be voting no on Measure E, and I'll tell you why. Because for many years, long before I was on the council, the city council and the majority were dragging their feet on seeking out revenue from some of our corporate partners. They were not even willing to study a commercial linkage fee. Even just now is when we're actually going to be bringing that information forward. So we study whether to charge businesses worth $700 billion, a little bit of money, to contribute to some of the housing crisis. And so I wasn't supportive of it then. I'm not going to be voting for it because I think it's an insincere attempt to try to raise revenue on the backs of the residents, and that gets me very upset. And so I have no problem going to our corporate partners and asking them to pitch in, but the majority on the council has been unwilling to do that. And that is the reason I'm voting no on principle.
We're going to stay on housing, starting with you, Councilman Jimenez. What is your stance on the ACO/Charities housing proposal on Blossom Hill Road as it currently is being pushed in council?
Right, so the ACO furniture site, the old roller rink, the Aloha roller rink site is going to be a 147-unit complex for low-income seniors. When Charities Housing initially purchased that site, they came to me and they asked me if I was interested in housing our seniors. And of course I said, yes. Now, the reason I have not publicly come out and said my view is because the city attorney told me not to publicly state my view in case it got appealed to the full city council. It hasn't gotten appealed to the full city council. It has gone to the planning commission, and on a unanimous vote, they voted to approve the project. And so I was supportive of it. I am supportive of it. I think it's a good thing. I don't buy into the peddling of fear that it's going to increase crime and this and that. I just don't buy that. I'm interested in housing our seniors. I'm interested in having them grow in place and live where they work and live not too far from the community center that's there to serve them. So that is what my view is on the ACO furniture site.
So I also am in support of the ACO furniture site and the senior housing that's there. The reason I was in support of it is because I listened to a bunch of our community members and they said, no, we're afraid for this reason, our safety, we're afraid for drop-off sites, for needle exchanges, for everything else. I listened to that, and I went to the CEO of Catholic Charities and Charities Housing, and I spoke with him and I said, hey, can you incorporate this language into your documents to make sure that it's not used for a 5150 drop-off site, to make sure that it's not a needle exchange or a mentally ill site, and none of that it actually houses seniors, and that the age of the seniors is in the description so it can't be changed for the life of the project. When he agreed to that, they put it into the literature. So long story short, went to the CEO, we got that in the literature, I posted that on my website at votefleming.com, you can check it out on there. It's exactly what I wrote, put it on Nextdoor, social media. Yeah, we're in favor of it, we want to see house our seniors and make sure that they're comfortable.
Okay, we're going to stay on housing. What locations in D2 would you propose for the homeless campus/navigation centers?
So to answer that question, we'd have to actually go and visit our community members. We'd have to have discussions with them to see what the community wants, where they want it. When I was on the Neighborhoods Commission, the Tiny Home Project came before us, and I knew that the City Council was going, or the Housing Department was going to choose sites without asking community members' opinions. So as the ad hoc chair of the Neighborhoods Commission on Homelessness, I made sure that the Housing Department worked with community members and had a meeting in all 10 districts to make sure that the residents were aware of potential site locations. That wouldn't have happened, in my opinion, without my work on the Neighborhoods Commission, because City Council Policy 630 has no teeth. There's no penalty for violating our noticing policy, notifying the residents of projects that are going up in their area. So in terms of where a navigation center would go, homeless housing, we want to speak with our residents first. We want to speak with our voters first. We want to speak with our community members first, neighborhood associations, district leadership group, and figure it out together, because that's what I'm about, being together, being united.
Thank you so much. So we're actually going down a path and exploring this question. In December, we had a meeting with a nonprofit to start discussing and educating residents about homelessness and what it means, supportive housing and such. And so we've only had one meeting. We're going to be having a meeting. I think we're going to be scheduling it for March or February. But going down a path to having deeper discussions about what we as a district, as a community, want to do with regard to the 200 plus homeless individuals we have, irrespective of what Almaden Valley does, what Los Gatos does, what Sunnyvale does, but having a deeper discussion about what we're willing to do. And so what I expect that's going to come from that conversation, and my view is that we need to start with the premise that we must do something because what we're currently doing isn't working. And so during those conversations, what I hope emerges are ideas coming from residents as to what and where and how things are going to play out. And then what I expect to do, because I'm going to be reelected March 3rd, is take those ideas, move those forward, and then carry those ideas to fruition and really address the problem.
All right, starting with you, Councilor Jimenez. Do you have the support of the San Jose Police Officers Association and the San Jose Firefighters?
I do have the support of the San Jose Police Officers Association and San Jose Firefighters. I think it's, for a gentleman who had worked for the Public Defender's Office, being endorsed by the police officers, I think that tells you a lot. I have nothing but a good working relationship with the head of the union, with the police chief who I meet with monthly. Everything that the police chief has asked for, we have done. We just recently made some modifications to the contracts with the dispatchers and the 911 dispatchers and the call takers because they've had some issues with turnover and retainment of folks. And so we've actually just made some changes, gave them some pay raises because they are the lifeline to the officers. The other thing that we've done with the firefighters, me and Councilmember Peralez actually pushed forward a policy to change their schedule so it can be more accommodating to their lifestyle because many of them were driving in from out of town. And so I am very much proud to be supported by them. I think they recognize who's going to be there for them when they're there for us on our worst of days.
Well, obviously I do not, but I'll tell you the background on that. So when I first announced my campaign, I reached out to the firefighters and the Police Officers Association. The Firefighters Association never got back to me. Tom Sagow, who's the union representative there for the police and fire, he told me it was a done deal already. You can submit your paperwork, your questionnaire, but it's already done. I submitted it anyway. I contacted them anyway. I asked them for an interview. I asked them to read my application, my questionnaire. He got back to me and he said, it was already done. But the board voted. It wasn't hundreds of people, mind you. It was the executive board, a handful of people. They made that decision. That's how it was done. And now, do I have the support of police officers? Absolutely. I've been to many police officers' houses in our district. All of them have put up my sign in their yard. All of them agree with my stance on Prop 47, 57, AB 109, my plan for increasing our police force, for increasing the amount of officers that we have. That's important to me, and I think that's important to our community members.
Okay, we're going to go to some individual questions. We have had some submitted from the audience for individuals. So I'll go, starting with you, Mr. Fleming. How long have you resided in District 2? And what have you specifically accomplished for the residents of District 2?
So I first moved with my family to District 2 after we had a shooting next to our house, after a man defecated on the street and told my wife that he was going to rape her. He pounded on our door. He chased her into our driveway. So we moved a whole 2.5 miles south to our current location. That's where we currently live, and that was back in June of last year. So we did it for our family's safety. And when we got here, we realized that the problems from our district were coming down here. That's why I'm running for city council here. Is to make sure that that doesn't happen, to make sure that our quality of life, is improved. And currently, with the current leadership, I don't think that's going to happen. Since I've been down here, I have been working with our community members, with our different neighborhood associations, with different cleanups, different events like that. But if you want to go back even 2.5 years ago, I presented at the Hayes Mansion with District 2, a room packed with about 500 people here, and spoke about the issue of homelessness, of all things, which is why I created the Fleming Homeless Plan, which you can check out at votefleming.com/homeless plan.
All right. Individual questions for Councilmember Jimenez. If you are re-elected, what will you do differently? And what are your new plans?
Well, one of the things I would do differently, and this is more a personal level, is that I have 3 children and a wife, and this job doesn't always lend itself to a work-life balance. I would strive to be home more and be more attentive to my children, but I'm going to remain committed to the residents of this district. Long before I ran for office, I was already doing the work. This isn't a fly-by-night operation. I was on 6.5 years on the Parks Commission as a volunteer, representing District 2. And so I remain committed, and there's a lot of things that remain undone, whether it be the substation, whether it be the historic agreement between the city of San Jose and Union Pacific that I have led, so we can really turn Monterey Road into the gateway that it should be. Whether it's further work in Coyote Valley, the substation, there's still a lot left to do. Solving our homeless issues is going to be one of my prime goals of moving that issue forward in a meaningful way. And so those are some of the things that I plan to do, re-elected.
I'm going to go back to a question for both of you, starting with Councilmember Jimenez. What is your input on student housing being so limited, and do you have any plans?
Student housing being so limited. So for like university students?
I'm assuming that this is university students.
Well, there's been some projects downtown that have been approved and that are coming online. As a matter of fact, recently the California, the state building right there next to the Hammer Theater, and thankfully to the past council member Osh Kalra, that's actually going to be converted to student housing and going to be used by the university. And so very much in support of that. I think there was that was the announcement recently, but I also know that there are many college students that are living out of their cars. And so I've met with President Papazian of San Jose State University and emphasized to her the importance of actually providing a space for some of these students, safe parking like we're doing here. My view is, generally speaking, certainly we need more housing for students, but to the extent we don't have those available, universities have gymnasiums. They already have the spaces suited to house some of these students. And so it's beyond me as to why we haven't moved that a little further along. And so it's certainly something that I'm going to continue to put pressure on folks to do because I think it's important.
So I was at San Jose State University discussing my homeless plan, actually, with the sociology department when that announcement was made about the student housing. And that was an excellent move, and very grateful that those students will have housing over there. At the same time, it's university housing. San Jose State University needs to get on the ball. They need to create housing for their students. They need to create dormitories for their students. That's something that's incredibly important for them to do because it is their university and not a city council issue here. If there's anything we can do in terms of reducing fees, reducing permitting costs, reducing the cost of building for them, that's what I want to do because it's not just going to help out our students, it's going to help out all housing throughout our district, throughout our city. And that's incredibly important. That's why we have a housing shortage, is because it's too expensive to build here. That's really it. Everyone's telling us that it's too expensive. Projects don't pencil out. We can't get loans for it because it's too expensive. But we need to fix that. We need to make it more affordable. We need to make it more cost effective and fix housing across the board.
All right, starting with you, Mr. Fleming. This is a question for both of you. Are you a registered Republican or Democrat? Who did you vote for in the last presidential election and why?
So national issues.
I'm going to remind the audience, one of the rules that we had is that we're not to express any dismay, support, or otherwise. So please let's respect the process and allow these folks to answer. Mr. Fleming, 1 minute.
So again, a national issue, divisive. I'm not going to answer to yes or no or any of that for a national issue. I will tell you straight up, I am a registered Republican. I did serve on the Republican Central Committee, and I did that because I felt that change could be brought to the party to be more inclusive and to be a better party from within. So I went from being a nonpartisan to a Republican, and then I went into the party and I went into it with the hope of change, to make sure that we could have better policies and better representation for all of our community members, because it did feel like there was a polarizing issue here, and I wanted to fix that. Again, I started the neighborhood association in the most ethnically diverse area of our city. I did that so that all of us would feel welcome, all of us would have a voice, all of us would feel included, and that's what I brought to the party. I no longer serve on that committee. I moved to a different area, as we already discussed. But as my time there, what I did, it was all for the benefit of all of us, for unity, for diversity, for inclusiveness, for a better San Jose and a better party. Thank you for the question.
Can you repeat the question?
The question, are you a registered Republican or Democrat, and who did you vote for in the last presidential election?
I just wanted to
And
know.
why?
So I said it earlier, you know, I certainly don't hide behind my party, and I'm very upfront with folks when I go to the doors. I am a Democrat, take it or leave it, that's just where my values lie. But I've emphasized to folks, you know, I go knocking on doors and encounter Republicans that are supporting me. Mike Wasserman, one of the top Republicans in the county, is supporting me, and as he expressed, we've had a good working relationship, we work well together, we can see past party lines. And the other thing I would tell you is what I tell some of the Republican voters is that the issues we face and the decisions we make, I answer your call, I'm responsive, I attend meetings, I show up irrespective of your party preference. And so I'm a Democrat, and I voted for the Democratic nominee, and that was Hillary Clinton.
Okay, we're gonna go back into policing. Actually, I have several of these, so I'm kind of combining them. Have you been on a police ride-along with San Jose Police in our district, District 2, and how many have you been on?
So I've been on many police ride-alongs. I can't remember the number. It's probably upwards of like 5 police ride-alongs. What I can tell you is when I was at the public defender's office, I didn't need to go on police ride-alongs. I was actually sometimes investigating police officers. And so I have a very unique, I think, and a diverse perspective as to what goes on ride-alongs. And so I've been on many. I have old friends, current colleagues that are currently police officers. And so, yeah, so it's been a lot. And so you see a lot of interesting things and get a really unique perspective from what's happening on the floor, on the ground floor of our community. But the other thing I think is important to note as we talk about public safety issues is I'm not interested in peddling fear, to suggest to you that the world is burning down, to suggest to you that we're in a war zone. Certainly crime exists. You go on next door, it seems like the world's burning down. I understand that. Crime does happen, it is happening. I see it, I've seen it, I've investigated it. But to paint a picture as if things are falling apart, the wheels are coming off, I think is just unrealistic and untrue.
So on that point, I mean, homicides are up 19%, rapes are up 38%. Obviously, we have a major problem in our city that needs to get fixed. Have I been on a ride-along? Absolutely. Yes, I have. I've been on several ride-alongs with our officers. I love going on ride-alongs. I stayed on a ride-along all night one time during the night shift. I didn't get home, I think it was like 4:30 in the morning. My wife went, "Why are you getting home so late?" And I said, "Because they get home so late." That was it. We had a barbecue at 4:30 in the morning for the officers I rode along with. I love our police department. I love our police officers. We need more of them. We need to support them. We need to back the blue. Absolutely. When I was on one ride-along, actually, in District X-Ray, we came across a drive-by shooting. We actually caught the car. It was driving almost the other direction that we were, had to flip a U-turn, caught up with the person, almost rammed them off the road, got out, 4 police officers were there. I have this amazing picture of my officer for the day, my partner for the day, and he has the person and he's arresting that person. That was an excellent ride-along. It gave me a lot of insight into our district, and again, I support our police 100%.
Okay. We're going to move on to encampments. What's your position on sanctioned encampments, or sanctioned or cooperative encampments? Are you for them, against them, and why?
I'm not in favor of sanctioned encampments, cooperative encampments. I'm not in favor of seeing tent and blight on the streets. That's a major issue for us. We don't want to enable homelessness anymore. That's what we've been doing. The county, the state has been enabling homelessness around here, and that's why things are getting so bad. That's why you see it along Monterey. That's why you see it in our creeks. That's why you see pollution levels in our creeks. That's why the city was fined, because we had so much pollution going into our natural environment and our ecosystems, and they still haven't cleaned all that up. So, no, I'm not in favor of that. What we need to do is we need to focus on the Fleming homeless plan. That's how we get people off the streets. That's how we get rid of encampments. That's how we get people real help, real shelter, real warmth, real food, real services, real treatment for mental illness, get people sober, get people job training, job placements, and get them back to being contributing members of society. That's what you do. A sanctioned encampment doesn't do that. It enables the problem, and things get worse because you're keeping people away from services. You're keeping them away from help, and it's not the right thing to do.
You know, in the city of San Jose, we have upwards of 6,000 homeless individuals, and we have 800 beds or so. And so there's obviously a big disparity. What we're currently doing, sweeping folks, they come right back, or they go on the other side of Monterey Road, it just doesn't work. And so until we get more beds, I think we need to figure out some solutions. And I'll just go back to what I said earlier about having deeper discussions about what we in the city, South San Jose, District 2, are willing to take on to help address the homelessness, the unhoused situation with some of the folks living across the roadways here in our respective district. And so during those conversations, if the idea of a sanctioned encampment comes up and folks are supportive of it and we identify a site, I'll be supportive of it as well. But we need to have that community discussion and dialogue to figure out what we're willing to take on. But I can tell you, what we're currently doing is not working, and we need more beds. And so, as an example of what I've been trying to do is when we had the discussion to sell some property to Google, I was the only council member asking questions. And I asked questions about them opening up a navigation center in one of their buildings. It has gone nowhere.
All right, we're going to go to some individual questions. Go with you, Sergio. I'm going to read these mostly as they are. There are some pokes, and I'm going to try to read through some of the pokes, or at least dilute them. So, before you were elected, you met with neighbors in a meeting where they were gathered to work towards getting the four corners of Blossom Hill and Snell cleaned up. You know, going into your office, that we needed help with the blight and crime in that area. What took you so long to deal with this?
What took me so long to deal with it? This isn't the question. I know who this question comes from. It's an individual. Before I was a council member, I was already doing stuff, mind you. I went to a meeting in the Blossom Hill Neighborhood Association. We talked about taking a tour of the four corners, Snell and Blossom Hill Road. Snell and Blossom Hill Road. We scheduled the time to go, but lo and behold, I have a family. I had a job. I couldn't make the meeting. And so to this day, the individual has held it against me that I wasn't able to make that meeting. So I do what I can, but what we've done, we actually hired downtown streets teams about a year or so ago in which we were using that organization that was compensating homeless individuals to clean up those corners. And I think we've seen a dramatic difference. Did we erase it? Are the issues gone? Of course not. But it is a work in progress. We talk to the property owners all the time. Councilmember Candace, at my urging, joined me visiting every single establishment there, passing out information and telling them we're here to help them. And so we've done a lot, and there's still a lot more work to do.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fleming, we're going to move over to you. You just ran in District 7 for City Council. You were appointed to the District 7 Neighborhood Commission. Why didn't you elect to stay in District 7 and work out some of the District 7 problems?
Well, my wife didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe. My daughter, she's too young, but if she could tell us, she wouldn't feel safe either. When you have somebody putting their genital through your fence and urinating on your driveway, when you have an RV full of prostitutes and the police aren't doing anything about it, when you have meth labs that are RVs that are exploding across the street, catching on fire, literally right in front of your doorway, when you have a shooting, when you have you have to grab your infant daughter and take her to the ground because there are bullets flying in your neighborhood, when there is a shooting where 4 people die and a guy commits suicide, that's an issue. When you have a cafe down the street where men wear body armor and come in and shoot 30 rounds of bullets, that's an issue. That's not an environment to have a child. That's not an environment to have a family. That's not something that could get fixed. I did not have confidence in that council member that she was going to do anything to fix those issues. We needed to change, we needed safety, and we moved to make our families safe, period.
So Mr. Fleming, starting with you 1 minute. What is being done or what are your plans to do about homeless parking on residential streets?
So again, we go back to the Fleming plan. You look at the Fleming plan, check it out, votefleming.com/homeless plan. I hope all of you on your phones right now going to it because you'll see what we're going to do. We can construct a university-like campus for 800 individuals, get them treatment, get them health, get them food, water, out of the elements, everything that they need. When we do that and we have the beds, the people in District 2, the camps in District 2, the homeless encampments here, we can move those along and have them go into shelter, have them go into housing, have them go into a tailored rehabilitation process where they are treated humanely, where they're treated fairly, where they get the services and they get the help and support that they need to better their lives, to become healthy, and to become contributing members of society once again. It's in that plan. Come up to me afterwards, let's discuss it. It's a really great plan that was created with the help of San Jose State University, sociology department, anthropology department, different professors over there. One professor said this is his life work. And I created it. He was so excited for it. So please check it out.
Councilmember Jimenez, same question.
Can you repeat the question?
What is being done or what is your plan to do about homeless parking on residential streets?
Right, so it's a fundamental problem. I mean, I think even the Oak Grove Neighborhood Association along Hazen has some issues with the RVs, right? And this is not an easy problem to solve. And we reach out to the Department of Transportation to potentially install signs. And that has been done in other parts of the city, and even in District 2 in certain parts some time back. The fundamental challenge is just like the encampments. We install the signs, we say you can't park here if your vehicle's larger than X, they just go somewhere else. And so what I've been telling my team is that we need to start sending those people to the safe parking area and not have them in the middle of the street. And so the other thing, and some of the folks from the Oak Grove Neighborhood Association are here, but the other thing we need to start exploring, I believe, and if someone from my team hasn't already mentioned this to you, I'll mention it to you now. We're going to approach you about any ideas you have about where to identify and locate a RV parking lot of sorts in the area, whether it be out by Coyote Valley or whatever it may be. And so those are the type of things we need to start exploring. Some of these people, they're struggling and they are a nuisance and creating issues, so we need to figure it out.
All right, we're going to go back to some individual questions, starting with you, Sergio. You said in a previous debate that you didn't think crime has increased. How are you measuring the experience of your constituents and what is feeding your assessment?
Listen, that comment that crime hasn't increased, it was a general comment. The reality is that whatever experience you're seeing, whether you find someone defecating on your driveway, whether someone steals your package, that's real to you. And I don't disagree with that or try to take that away from anyone. That exists. I know it does. The gist of my comment is just simply that I don't think it's healthy, I don't think it's real to be peddling fear. To suggest that the world is burning down, things are going to hell, elect me, I'll solve it. It's just not the way it works, right? These are not novel approaches, needing more officers and reestablishing the burglar unit and all that. We're doing all that. We are one of the most depleted police departments in many major cities. The whole pension reform fiasco, that led to a lot of officers leaving the department. I'm proud to tell you, when I took office, we typically had about 4 officers at the academy. Now we have upwards of 50. And so things are getting better. It's going to take time.
I have to ask you to pass the microphone. Mr. Fleming, individual question. Based on your residency, what do you see as District, I believe it should be District 2, most pressing needs?
What I see as District 2's most pressing needs, it's got to be safety, homelessness, and it's going to be our cost of living. Those are our big 3 right there. 4 would be, that's included in that. So safety, we want to feel safe in our homes. When I'm going door to door, I've knocked on several thousand doors, had several conversations with a lot of our residents and neighbors here. They're telling me things have gotten worse. They've lived here some for 50 years, some have lived here for 4 years, some have lived here for a few months. Things are getting worse. They see it on Blossom Hill. People are having break-ins. There's been shootings on Blossom Hill. Same with on my street. People are when I announced my campaign, I've had 5 flat tires. 5. One tire was slashed, 3 bolts, 1 in my wife's car, 2 more in my other truck, and 1 person put a screwdriver through my other truck that's been sitting in my driveway for 7 months. Crime is increasing, okay? It's happening to all of us, and it's unacceptable.
Okay, let's start with you, Mr. Fleming. This is for both of you. What will you do to end structural violence?
To end structural violence.
Structural violence.
Could you elaborate upon structural, please?
I am not sure what structural violence was. I was just about to Google it. I am going to give you the question because I got the question. What would you do to end structural violence?
Could I
Define it.
I'm going to ask this gentleman. We will allow for the crowd to speak. so please, go ahead, Tom.
Structural violence is policies and procedures that are written in a manner that appear to be harmless, but actually subject certain populations to great harm or racist-like environments.
Okay, so we've all learned something tonight, structural violence.
Thank you. So I think that is very real. I think there definitely are some areas and some laws that fit into that category. And what we need to do is we need to have the conversations with our community, with people, members of our community that have been affected by that, with not just the council, but with the police officers, with our county supervisors, with our sheriffs, with law enforcement in general, to discuss those issues, have the DA involved as well, and figure out ways to fix that injustice. Because we want to make sure that all of us are treated equally and fairly, and that the law treats us all the same.
Can I just say what he said? I mean, that sounds reasonable to me. Well, listen, I mean, as I've mentioned on a few occasions, I mean, our justice system is not perfect. And so we need to root out every policy that exists that prevents people from having their fair sort of day in court, whatever that may be. I mean, you think back to the whole epidemic with crack and powder cocaine, how it was treated differently. I mean, those are some of the things that come to mind as you ask that question, right? And obviously, we know, thinking back, that impacted certain communities. Now, was that done purposefully or not?
Yes.
That's up for discussion, right?
Yes.
Or maybe not up for discussion. But those are some of the things I think we need to weed out. But I think that's where the spirit of the Prop 47, some of these criminal justice reforms come from, recognizing that some of the policies that have been in place perpetuating certain things haven't been very fair. And so that's why I'm not, we're not running for state office, so, debating those policies isn't the place for it. But those are the things that come to mind for me.
All right, since I was about to Google something, we're going to go to Google. So regarding Google Downtown, it's been said that high-tech jobs increase the cost of housing. What's your opinion regarding homelessness that will occur as a result of Google Downtown?
I think it's a very real possibility. There was recently a report on displacement that was put out by the Housing Department and a host of other folks that came together to really study this issue. I think it's a possibility. I think we don't really know yet. If you look back to my comments when we unanimously approved Google, I think generally it's a good thing, but what I said was that I'm cautiously optimistic that things are going to turn out well. I think things are going to get more expensive. That's why, I didn't have a chance to mention this in my in my opening statements, but that's why some of these laws that we've passed are super important, right? That's why the Apartment Association is not happy with me when I spearheaded some of these protections for thousands upon thousands of renters across the city to give them just cause protection, something that had been discussed for 40 years in the city of San Jose. We finally did that about 2 years ago. Those are the type of things that aren't too sexy to talk about in District 2, right? Because we're talking about all these other things, but those are the type of policies that we're moving forward. Ellis Act protection, so if someone's evicted, that there's some compensation for that dislocation. So things of that nature are policies that we've been looking at and I've been championing.
So Google's coming to town, and Google has promised around 20,000 jobs, and they've promised around 20,000 units of housing, 5,000 of which are affordable. So one of the reasons why things started to increase, in my opinion, property value started to increase, in my opinion, right away, is supply and demand. We don't have enough supply on the market of housing. So as Google announced, all of a sudden prices start going through the roof because people want to be close to Google. That's really what happened. So if Google's coming and they're building the same amount of housing that they are jobs, well, that should be a 1-to-1 ratio and it shouldn't increase things. What we need to do to make housing more affordable is we need to lower the cost of construction. We do that by lowering fees. We do that by reducing regulations here. We do that by reducing commercial linkage fees and things like that that make projects not pencil out. We need to build more housing. If our development community is saying they can't get loans to build, we have an issue. And that issue is not from Google, it's from the city council. And the city council is the one that perpetuated that, and we need to get someone in there to fix it. Thank you.
We're going to move over to the independent police auditor. What are your thoughts regarding the independent police auditor, and should the charter of the independent police auditor be expanded? Start with you, Mr. Fleming.
The independent police auditor is a very important tool, I think, for the city of San Jose and really any city. It's there as a tool to make sure that there's checks and balances with the system, to make sure that our officers are doing their job appropriately and that they're treating people with respect and equally. So that is extremely important. We have run into issues where we've had activists get into the IPA position and has caused problems there, saying, with searches and investigations into officers that weren't warranted, making the officers' time, taking them off of the street, taking away from our safety in the area. I don't agree with that. Do I agree with increasing the IPA's powers? No, I don't. I haven't seen a need for it. Our chief of police has been very progressive. He's released all our crime stats statistics, and it has shown that San Jose Police Department is one of the best run operations and police departments in the entire nation. We don't have the issues that you see nationally. We don't have the issues that you see in other cities. So why do we need to expand something that's already working great? We don't. We need to respect our cops. We need to respect our community. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fleming, we're going.
Forgot me. Let me just say something about, because often at City Hall, there's things that are important that we vote no on. And I can tell you that I took a vote of no on giving away millions of dollars of subsidies to these developers that say, millionaires that say, you know what, I can't build this. You need to give me some tax breaks that then come back on your shoulders. And the majority of the city council voted to approve these tax breaks. And these are people that have had wage theft violations and things of other things. And they're not interested in paying some of the very workers that are building this building fair wages, people that live in this city. And so I voted no for some of these giveaways to these big developers that are consistently asking for handouts. And so, independent police auditor, I do think it's an important role. We are actually in the process of expanding her powers. And it's being done in collaboration with the police chief and the Police Officers Association. So those powers are being expanded to allow her to look at additional sort of investigations that take place. You know, I've often thought that the person that wants bad cops off the street more than anyone are the good cops. And so I think we need to enable her to do her job, and I think we should expand those powers, and we're working on that.
One individual question from Mr. Fleming. I'm actually combining the two here. If you don't support taxing individuals or taxing corporations, then how do we continue to have the required revenue for services, especially things like more police officers that you're advocating for? And how are you going to implement the Fleming homeless plan, the cost, and where are you going to get the money from? Who is going to pay?
So we don't need more taxes. The money coming in, the income coming in is not the problem. It's how it's spent. It's where it's mismanaged. It's where it's misappropriated. That's where we have the problems. You know, when it comes to homelessness, for example, currently we spend $600,000 on one studio apartment for permanent supportive housing. $600,000 construction cost. That's a lot of money. If you average that out over, 6,000 homeless in our city or 9,000 countywide, you don't have enough money. I think you have $550,000 in total for each person just to construct. That's not including services, that's not including mental health, that's not including anything else, food, electricity, nothing. So obviously what we're doing, it's not sustainable, it's not going to work. The Fleming Homeless Plan changes the construction cost. It makes it so that each one of those beds costs $50,000, a savings of $440 million in total. $440 million for 800 people gives you a lot of money to help people rehabilitate, gives you a lot of money to reconstruct. That's an example, and we can do that all across the city to have more police officers and to increase our services by cutting the programs that are failing us and redesigning those programs so that they're more efficient and they work for us.
We're going to start, this is for both candidates, but Fleming, we're going to start with you first on this. Were the homeless, formerly homeless, or homeless advocates consulted in the formation of the Fleming Homeless Plan? This person is concerned that the homeless will not want to be isolated on the edge of town and won't go. So we'll start with you on the plan, but then I'm going to ask for the council member to address how you have engaged the homeless advocates in consulting them for any plans. So start with you, Mr. Fleming.
Yes, the homeless community was engaged, they were consulted, and we had many meetings with members that were advocates, many members who are formerly homeless, many members who are currently homeless. One person in particular, his name is Johnny Johns, he said he loves the plan. He absolutely loves it. He was homeless in Los Angeles, he lost everything that he had. Now he's back on his feet, he has a motorcycle, he's a great guy, and he said, this is what we need because it focuses on sobriety, it focuses on mental health. It's not a handout for the rest of your life to be subsidized and to be dependent upon the government for your life. This is a hand up. It teaches you sobriety, it teaches you to be a contributing member of society, which is exactly what we need. So yes, the homeless were consulted, yes, we had many meetings, yes. This plan is going to work. We're going to do it, and we can do it together. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a chance to fact check the Fleming plan. And I don't know to what extent there was conversations with some of the homeless advocates or homeless individuals. The first thing I would just like to say is just that what keeps coming up as Mr. Fleming keeps talking about the Fleming plan is the idea, certainly there are a lot of folks that are homeless that have a lot of different issues, mental health, addiction issues. But I've met some homeless folks that are contributing members of society that they actually have a job and just can't make it. And so this narrative that they're not contributing members of society, they're looking for handouts, things of that nature, I think is just incorrect, and I think it's offensive, quite frankly. I don't think the homeless individuals are going to be really for isolation and the stigma that's going to come from being in a leper colony of sorts out in the fringes of society. And so I just don't think it's going to take. I don't think it's going to take. And so I haven't reviewed the details of it, but yeah, so we'll see.
I'm going to rebut that real quick.
30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, he's denying it because, I mean, it's going to work, and he knows that if it does work, if people buy into it, he's going to lose the election. That's really what it comes down to. That's all I have to say about that.
We're going to start with you, Councilmember Jimenez. This was actually intended for Mr. Fleming, but I'm going to ask it of both candidates in terms of their party affiliation. So the question states, you claim to be a candidate for all people and yet are a registered, I'm going to say Democrat for you, Republican for you. Who, where, and from whom do you get your perspective and insight into a diverse set of ideas and values? So please, both answer.
So I'm a registered Democrat. I am. Where I get my values, and I get it from my life experience. I get it from my interaction every single day with one of the most diverse cities in the world and the residents that inhabit this diverse city. I get it from the Vietnamese gentleman that I talk to, the African American woman that I meet, the Republican gentleman who's wearing, a flag on his hat. I get it from all of that, from my life experience, from growing up poor, from having a hard-working mom, from someone who was taught from a very early age to care about others, to not judge, to treat people with respect, irrespective of what they believe, whether they believe in God, whether they don't, whether they want to kneel for the flag or they don't. I respect everyone's point of view. And so there's been this narrative as we've gone through this election as if I don't listen to certain people. I listen to everyone. People just need to there's some folks that don't make a distinction between listening and doing exactly what they want. I listen. I am accessible and I'm present.
So I was raised in a very diverse area, actually. I was born in LA, as was already mentioned, and went to school with a bunch of people, a bunch of kids of all different backgrounds. My very first friend was actually Islamic, and we still are in contact today. Okay. I grew up, like I said, in LA, then we moved up here, and we lived in the most ethnically diverse area of San Jose. And do I see color? Do I see differences? No, I just see people. I see people with the same problems, going about the same daily lives, having the same type of issues. For some, it's they have certain areas where there are more issues. For some, there are other areas where there are different issues. But all of us are together. All of us are generally the same. When I look for inspiration, I speak with my community members, my friends, whether they're Vietnamese or Chinese, or if they are Latino, African American, whatever they may be. I look for them because they're my friends and we support each other. When I go and read, I read books like The Audacity of Hope. I look at books, by Martin Luther King and quotes by him and speeches by him, because he is a huge inspiration in my life. Judge me not by the color of my skin, judge me by the content of my character.
We're going to go ahead and have to move to the next question. For everyone here, just a time check. We are going to go to 8:30. About 8:25, I'll give you a closing statement. So we're going to have a bullet round here. What are regulations regarding high-intensity housing? This person is concerned about numbers of people living in apartments and houses. So I'd ask you to talk about what your opinion is related to that.
What our opinion is in relation to high-density apartments.
Regarding regulations regarding high intensity is what they call it, probably means high density housing, but they're concerned about the numbers of people living in apartments and houses, so probably lots of people living in individual homes. So.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't have multiple families living in a small space. We shouldn't have people cramped into one house. It creates problems for the neighborhoods. The parking issues, obviously, where people are parking on lawns, where you can't park in front of your own home. There are some major issues there, and we need to take care of that. How do we do it? We need more housing. Well, why don't we have enough housing? I go back to the fact that we can't build housing in this city because the development community has said we can't build housing. We can't acquire loans for housing. It's not about putting it back on taxpayers later on. It's about just being able to build the housing in the first place. That's what we need to do. You reduce fees, you reduce regulations so we can get more housing built so people can move out of these dwellings with multiple families inside, and then they can have their own at a price that they can afford at a market rate that's affordable for all of us. That's how you do it. You don't need subsidies, you don't need increased taxes, you don't need any of that. We can fix our community by increasing the amount of supply on the market, therefore decreasing demand and decreasing prices.
Some of these developers, as they come with their hands out asking for these subsidies, we've actually asked them, open up your books. Let us see exactly why things aren't penciling out. Guess what they say? No, we won't do that. Believe us. Believe me, a millionaire, multi-million-dollar company, I need a little bit more money in order to get this pencil out. It's extortion, to be honest with you. That's what it is. That's what it is. And so certainly having people in high-density housing creates problems, but that's an unfortunate symptom of the broader challenges we have here in Silicon Valley, right? Where you get a tech worker that's making a few $100,000s a year, and you get someone that's barely scraping by on minimum wage, doing the best that they can. And so not until we build more housing. We do need to build more housing at all levels. We've exceeded our market rate goals, which is good, and that's supply, but we still need more at the bottom rungs of that. And so that's why some of the funding allocations that we've made via the housing department to nonprofit developers has been targeted to very low income people to get them out of those those families out of those houses that, where they're all living together, and so providing them space.
Hey Rick, I have a rebuttal for that.
30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. So the cost of housing here in San Jose, if you compare it to a similar construction, same materials, same plan, same blueprint, over in Texas, it's about $300,000 more expensive. More expensive, not inclusive of land or any of that. It's more expensive because of the fees that we have here. That's a huge concern. That is a major, major problem that we have. I know one person that wanted to create a duplex out of a 2,000 square foot home. He wanted to make it into two 1,000 square foot homes. And the cost to do that, just in permits and fees, before any construction, before anybody went in there and fixed it up, was over $100,000. That's why we have the housing problem that we do.
Okay,
Can I rebut the rebuttal?
30-second rebuttal.
I think it's just important to note that as we talk about housing costs, right, these developers want to pay the workers, the people actually building these peanuts. And that's probably what's happening in Texas. And that is the reason, that's one of the costs of building housing. It's labor, right? But don't we want the people building the housing to be able to live in the same community where they're building this? I don't want someone driving 3 hours from Modesto to come and build a building here and then go back home. What kind of life is that? And that is the consistent fight we have at City Hall, is that folks, that they want to do it on the backs of the workers, of the people, the very residents of the city, and I won't have it. I'm not supportive of that.
Okay, moving on to our final couple of questions here. What's your position on the education and housing tax that will cancel Prop 13? This was asked earlier. This is the schools and communities first tax.
Yeah, well, I think as you said, we'll cancel Prop 13. I don't know if that's an accurate depiction, but it's going to leave, my understanding of it is that folks that currently benefit from Prop 13 are going to continue to benefit from Prop 13. It's going to have a split role where the assessor is going to have to assess the businesses a little differently, like give IBM, right? We talked, there was some comments earlier about, well, your water is going to go up and the bread you're buying is going to go up. Well, IBM doesn't sell bread and water. You probably don't buy exactly what they're selling. And so these corporations are sitting in a pile of cash, and I just want them to pay their fair share to make sure that you all don't need to bear that burden. And so I am supportive of it.
So, I already said no, I'm not in support of it, but when you do get down to it, even if you're talking about IBM or another firm like that, you're still going to pay for their services. The cost of your services will go up, whether it's a keyboard, whether it's a monitor, whether it's software, whether it's bread, whether it's your gasoline for your car, whether it's the electricity for your house, whatever it is, it's going to go up. So don't be fooled, because the person who's going to pay for it is not the corporation, is not the business, it's going to be us. It's going to be you, it's going to be me, and too many people are already leaving this area. Going back to the question about schools, we don't have enough children in schools. Why? Because people are leaving the area. It's too expensive to live here. It's too expensive. We can't have another tax. It's going to affect all of us. We can't do it.
All right, final question before we go to the closing. This one will start with you. Mr. Fleming, what is your plan for the city of San Jose to reduce its carbon footprint and get aggressive on combating climate change?
So the biggest thing that we can do from a city council perspective, we do land use decisions, we do buildings, we approve buildings and developments, and I want to make sure that we can improve our live workspace. What that means is you live where you work. Cut down on traffic emissions, cut down on CO2, make sure that we're environmentally friendly. Make sure that our buildings are environmentally friendly, that they have green footprints, that they have green rooftops, that we have renewable energy sources. That's extremely important, and we do it that way. We incentivize it so that the market dictates, and that way we actually get what we want without paying extra money and extra subsidies for it. And people have a higher quality of life because instead of sitting in a car for 2-3 hours commuting every day, you get to go right down the street, right down the elevator, you live where you work. That's incredibly important. That's what we need to do.
Thank you so much. I've been proud to, sometimes it's been mentioned that I don't work well with others, or I'm divisive. The mayor and I have signed on many memos together as it relates to the environment. One of them is the REACH code for buildings, because we recognize that vehicles and buildings are the biggest emitters of CO2 emissions, and so we want buildings to be smarter, to be greener, and so we're going down that path. I voted, as did the whole council unanimously, to create San Jose Clean Energy, to provide and procure energy that's cleaner to the residents. We've also, certainly, the preservation of Coyote Valley is vitally important to that. Right underneath there, if you live in the area, your water comes from Great Oaks water, and that aquifer sits right below that land. And so preserving that green space that captures a lot of this carbon is supremely important. Certainly trying to get cars off the road is another thing that we're trying to do. We're trying, I know I got pulled off the committee by the mayor, but I know Councilmember Johnny Camus sits on the 85 working group that's really exploring ways to expedite the flow of traffic on Highway 85, which is going to be very important.
All right, so we're going to go to a 2-minute wrap-up. We'll start with you, Mr. Fleming, as the council members started earlier.
So again, thanks for having us. I really appreciate the conversation, the dialogue, the questions that we've had. There have been some tough questions and some interesting questions and some fun questions, but they're all important because they're asked by you. So thank you very much for that. This election, you have a big decision to make. There are 2 choices, and one of us will be your next council member. And I ask you to vote with your heart. Do your research, check us both out. Research, research, research. I'm an engineer, that's what I do. Research, research, research. Then we make that decision. Check that out. I started a neighborhood association in the most ethnically diverse area of our city. Started a leadership group for the exact same purpose. I got into politics because I came across a child that cut his leg on a syringe going down a slide at a tot lot. A tot lot. The city council wouldn't do anything about it. The park was disgusting. So I went and taught over at San Jose State University a sociology capstone class in exchange for the students who were our labor, essentially. And we went out and volunteered and picked up the parks, picked up the feces, picked up the syringes, did all of that because our city council wouldn't do it. We had to think outside the box, we got it done, and finally we got the city council to agree to fix that up once and for all. It took years. It shouldn't have taken years. Those children were exposed to some of the most nasty things you can think of. Human defecation, human genitals, people engaging in sexual activities while they're trying to play softball or baseball. It was unacceptable. That's why we got into politics. That's why we're here today. We want a better quality of life. We want a lower cost of living. We want to feel safe in our homes. We want to address the homeless situation with compassion and with a plan that actually works. Because as my opponent has said here, what we're doing now doesn't work. So why would you keep doing what we're doing? You need a new plan, and that's what the Fleming Homeless Plan is all about. That's why I'm asking for your consideration. That's why I'm asking for your vote. That's why we're running. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Jonathan Fleming. Have a great night.
Well, let me just first say that thank you so much for being here. Thank you for having us, for listening to us. As you can see, there's a diversity of opinion on many, many things. So there's, I think, in my mind, a very clear choice to make. The other thing I'd like to say is, I'm not in politics. I'm in public service. And I've been doing that long before I decided to run for office. And quite frankly, I haven't said this publicly, and some of you may be very excited about this, but this may be the last time I ever run for office. I'm sincerely here. I'm here because I want to leave this place better than I found it. When you're elected to public office, you are not a dictator. You don't go in there and say, we're going to do my plan, do it my way or the highway. That is not the way things work. You need someone that's going to work collaboratively, which I do with my council colleagues. We don't always agree, and you have to know as a council member when to take a firm stance on something that's value, that you value, the sort of cornerstone value that you have. And I've done that on occasion. I remain committed to this community long before I decided to run, whether it was starting the neighborhood association, whether it was hosting forums on the oil train coming down the middle of our community all the way down to San Luis Obispo, whether it was hosting cleanups, whether it's helping build additional neighborhood associations. That is where the sincere commitment comes from. I said jokingly, well, it's halfway serious at another forum, is that I've been here 20 years and my opponent's been here 20 weeks. And I obviously it's a little jab, right? We all recognize that. But for me, having been a longtime resident, my mom lives here, my brothers live here, friends live here, acquaintances live here. For me, it's vitally important that we elect someone that actually knows the community, that has been around, that shows up. My kids have been part of these schools. My kids have been part of the Little Leagues. I've helped fund some of the Little Leagues. And so I ask for your vote. I think you'll see stark differences and know that I'm the guy for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and give you a round of applause. I want to thank Delta Sigma Theta and the NAACP for putting this together. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you.